Welcome to the BunkHaus podcast, broadcasting from the confluence of outdoor recreation and nature connectivity. I'm your host, Josh Crumpton, founder of Spoke Hollow Outdoors and the Los Salvaje food truck. My life as a rancher, guide, foodie, and conservationist has provided the opportunity to meet some really great people. And the BunkHaus is where we get to introduce them to you. Today I'm joined by my co-host and one of my best pals, Davin Topol, Whiskey T, the pro drink slinger, distiller at large, and avid outdoorsman. In this episode, we're talking with our special guest, Mason Lively, about music, songwriting, and being in the outdoors. So let's get this thing started.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Spoke Hollow Outfitters and Spoke Hollow Ranch. Is that what y'all call it? Spoke Hollow Ranch?
Spoke Hollow Outdoors and Spoke Hollow Ranch.
Yeah. Today was my second time upland hunting. First time upland hunting was with you guys out here, and it was a true pleasure. And so I just want to say thank you so much for taking me out, getting pheasants, quail, chuckers. It's a blast. Yeah. I grew up hunting, but that was truly a pleasure. So needless to say, it's a true pleasure to be here, man.
Honored to have you. Mason, you know, you're a musician.
Yes, sir.
Family man.
Yes, sir.
Talented hunter. We saw that in the field today.
Yeah. After my two birds that I missed, and eventually got a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, you smoked that pheasant.
That pheasant went around like a whirlybird.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was great. A blast. Yeah, it was perfectly in my left view here, and I was like, all right, I got this one. And my first pheasant rooster. It's pretty cool. It's a cool experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I love your music.
Thank you, man.
So talented.
Thank you.
You know, and how old are you?
I'm 25.
Man.
Crazy.
at the beginning of it all, man.
Man, a buddy of mine I was riding with a buddy of mine, y'all might know him, John Bauman, talented singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
And when you're in the middle of a co-write, like writing a song, like sometimes you'll share a Google Doc and everything, and you'll write the lyrics on it and everything like that. And I told him my email address, and it has my birth date in it, my birth like year, 1997. And he was like, 1997, what's that? And I was like, it's the year I was born. He was like, yeah, man, I'm 10 years older. So, I started young, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. You live in Kyle, Texas now, right?
I do. Yeah. Kyle, Butte area.
But that's not where you grew up, right?
No, I grew up in Victoria, Texas. Well, I grew up in a little town called Inez, Texas, just outside of Victoria. Population, maybe 1,900. Yeah, man, it's a trip going from that to, I lived in Austin for about a year and a half, moved to San Marcos after high school. So before I lived in Austin, it's a little bit of a culture shock going from a town like that to Austin, the big live music capital of the world, you know?
Yeah. What was Inez actually like growing up? You know, tell us a little bit about that growing up out there. That's way out in the middle of nowhere, by the way.
Yeah, it was one of those towns where you just like, my dad was a custom home builder, and he had work some years and some years he didn't. It was very like off and on, so we just never knew how good we were going to have it that year, and I love my dad. I love the family that I grew up in, but it was an experience that, like, now that I run into people that grew up in cities and everything like that, you can tell the difference between people that grew up, in Austin or San Antonio or Dallas, Fort Worth, and where I grew up, and it's different, man. I'm super proud of it. And I still have a lot of close relationships with my friends that are still there or, moved on, that grew up there as well. And it's just it's a different experience, but the more you grow up, the more you become an adult, there's like a pride that comes with coming from somewhere like that, where, it's nothing but county roads and post office, Dollar General, convenience store, schools, churches, and that's about it, Did
everybody know each other there?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those. I still get filled in on the gossip back home.
I bet you didn't get away with much as a kid.
No, yeah, everybody knew my parents, and everybody knew each other. So if we were we were out driving around, maybe having a beer or two, people knew it.
Recognize you and say, hey.
Knew it
yeah, exactly.
too.
They'd be like, hey,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I grew up in a small town in Colorado.
Where'd you grow up?
In Telluride, Colorado.
Telluride. Okay, yeah.
And it was a similar thing. It was like everybody knew everything that we were up to.
Yeah.
But I was pretty excited to get out of there.
Yeah.
And move to the city.
Man, I played a couple festivals in Colorado. One was in Montrose, Colorado. Montrose.
Yeah, Montrose. It's right around
Montrose.
the corner from me.
How do you pronounce it, Josh?
Well, Montrose, if you're an old like farmer, because that was like a farm community.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Total like just cowboys. And when I was in Telluride, those guys would come to play basketball against us, and there was like always a fight. It was like the Cowboys and the Hippies. Like Telluride was full of hippies. We were like small town but hippie town.
Uh-huh.
And Montrose was pretty small town.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys from Montrose would come up there and they'd be like, "You hippies with your long hair," and it got a little reckless and rowdy.
Man, it was beautiful when we played up there. Playing only in Texas and Oklahoma at that point, we did like a loop through. We played a show in what was it? I think it was Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Yep.
And then we looped around to the Montrose area, and we played a festival there. And that was just one of the most beautiful stages that I ever played on, because you see the mountain range right there in front of you. It was like for a little festival or something like that. It was cool, man. Music's taken me in a lot of like beautiful places, and that's kind of one of those just areas from the stage where you're outside and you see the natural beauty of just this beautiful country with so many diverse different landscapes that I'm super proud. Like, hey, I got to do that.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2019, I believe.
Okay.
I had food poisoning on that trip. Actually, yeah, I got food poisoning in Alamogordo, I think, and so that trip I was sick as a dog, but I'm like, show must go on.
Did you eat the chicken salad?
I think it was the potato salad.
Yep,
that was it.
Potato salad.
You never just don't
high
eat
mountain
the potato
salad. Yeah,
don't eat the chicken salad. Don't eat the potato salad.
That was it. I still haven't eaten potato salad to this day. I'm hard line on that.
So you guys ever remember we've got like the dogs barking out there? They're tearing up something.
Part of it. It's the ranch, man.
It is part of the ranch. Do you guys remember that song, the Kenny Rogers song? I can't remember the name of the song. Lucille.
Mm-hmm.
You picked a fine time
to leave me, Lucille. Yeah, I just got that album on vinyl, by the way, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Yeah.
What's the next line in that?
400 children in a crop in a field.
That's what I said. 400 children.
Is that not what it is?
No, I think it's actually 4 hungry children. But I thought 400 children in a crop in the field my entire life. It was like the Smurfs.
Yeah,
he was like Papa Smurf.
Is that really not what it is?
That would make sense.
I never thought I'd be a victim to one of the like lyrics that are commonly misconstrued or whatever. Like I always thought like, no, I'm good. I got it on lyrics, but I thought it was 400 children.
Me too. 400 children. And that's
4
kind of like
hungry children.
4 hungry children.
Yeah,
4 hungry
I don't know.
children.
I just thought it was like a play on how many children this family's got, with the crops in the field and all
lot
that.
of children. It's like half of Inez.
Yeah, exactly. I knew people with 400 children. Anyways.
Maybe it's Genghis Khan.
Before we get too deep into talking about the outdoors and family and music, we're drinking some magic elixir here. My ice is melted because I've been drinking it for a while.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Let's talk about this beverage that you whipped up for us.
So what we made today was a Rusty Nail blended scotch with Drambuie. It's a very simple cocktail. Just 2 ingredients, blended scotch cocktail. You can mix them half and half or, equal parts. But what we're drinking tonight is 2 parts scotch, 1 part Drambuie. Just kind of lets that scotch kind of shine out a little bit more.
What's the history of this drink? Do you know the history of
this? The history of this drink, all I know is it dates back pretty far. It's post-prohibition when alcohol was starting to come back. 1935 is what it's about the year that it started to show up in hotels and things like that. But then it went away for a long time. And so now I'm bringing it back.
Bringing back the Rusty Nail.
Well, it's really good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, and you can go over to the YouTube.
It's an oldie, yeah. It's an oldie, but a classic.
Yeah, if you want to learn to make it, you can go to the YouTube channel.
That's right.
He's giving his secrets away.
Yeah.
But,
secret ingredient.
If you want to see my smiling face actually make it, Go to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be worth it.
So let's talk about Victoria, the coastal plains of Texas.
Yeah.
Your youth. Take us through a little bit of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, man. So, I guess we can honestly start at my grandpa. He was a cowboy, man. He's 75 now, 76. He grew up in the era of the cowboy and hippie kind of coalition era. I feel like he was a home builder himself. My parents bought his business actually and continued to build homes and everything. But before that, he bought this ranch in Cuero, Texas, kind of outside of Cuero.
Home of the Chupacabra.
Yeah, home of the Chupacabra. You seen it?
I have not seen the Chupacabra.
It's pretty wild. Chupacabras are real, or in DeWitt County, yeah.
But it's like the Fighting Gobblers is the name.
Yeah,
of
the Fighting Gobblers is that's the high school there. Yeah. And my earliest hunting and just exploring a vast just ranch and everything was the earliest memories of that were on his land. He would take me, like I learned how to shoot guns out there. You know, I grew up in the country too, but like my grandpa was kind of like when we'd go and hang out with him for the weekend or whatever, like we were almost too young to be shooting guns, but he'd still just put a gun in our hands and be like, he'd fill up like old coffee cans with water and be like, just shoot him, like target practice, you know, you got to learn how to do this. So we would do that. And then eventually when I was about 11 or 12, maybe, I shot my first deer out there. I just fell in love with it, man. I fell in love with sitting in the blind with your rifle and your grandpa and your coffee and everything like that. I wasn't drinking coffee at that point, but just smelling his coffee from his thermos and everything like that. Just the memories of it and just the everything from the smells to the sights and seeing where the field was. It's just so ingrained in my mind to where I remember that first shot I took and it was just beautiful, man. I still think about it to this day. Every year I try and get at least a deer, you know, and whether it's out there or my parents' place out in Inez. And growing up, I would, you know, get a deer off even just the back porch of my parents' place, honestly. Like I do the whole like the bow hunting and everything like that too, but I'd also just sometimes the deer would just walk out in the field. And, you know, you got to take advantage of that.
That's
be
country
like,
life.
all right.
That's country life.
That's country life, man. And that's just how I grew up. That was kind of my first hunting experience. You know, growing up with my dad on our land in Inez, we had about 15 acres. So it was just perfect. It backed up to a creek. It's perfect for deer hunting. You know, he showed me how to set up a bow stand, hunting blind, just like a pop-up blind and everything like that. And it was, you know, all kind of combining into my experience as a hunter, and even still living in, you know, a town off of I-35, one of the busiest growing towns in the state of Texas. I still just am always itching to hunt and to go out there with them or go out with buddies or whatever and still get deer, get dove. And now thanks to you, you know, upland hunt and stuff like that.
I saw you shot a deer this year.
Yeah, this past Thanksgiving. Yeah, Thanksgiving week is always like that magical week because we're there for 4 or 5 days down in Inez. I'm going out to the pop-up blind, really hoping there's a deer and everything like that. You know, Dad's been throwing out corn and stuff like that. And sometime last year, I wasn't as lucky. This year I was. Got a good 8-point and happy about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dad, when was your first deer?
My first deer was, it was actually here in Texas about 9 years ago. I had the experience of shooting my first deer at King Ranch.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Nice.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to go to the ranch via IBC Bank. My father-in-law was friends with the owner of IBC Bank, and it was a completely different experience than what I had expected. Originally I had gone deer hunting in Minnesota before. We were stalking
in Minnesota.
That thing?
Yeah, that thing, that song.
That thing, the
song. It's just deer hunting. It's about a buck.
Did you see the turdy pointer?
The turdy point
I never
buck?
did see the turdy point buck.
Turdy point buck.
Yeah,
Did you get it? Did you get
song.
a turdy point buck?
It's not necessarily a song as it is like a limerick. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. The turdy point buck?
The turdy point
Have you
buck.
heard this? We're gonna play
Oh
it for you
yeah,
later.
you'll have to look it up.
It's pretty good.
It's a
Check it
thing
out.
apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had grown up stalking deer in Minnesota, but it was only a couple of times. Never came across them, and then moved to Texas. We went to King Ranch. we basically took a truck down with a feeder, and they spun the feeder, and the deer would show up, and you would point them out and like, which one do you want? And I was just kind of looking around like, wow, what is going on? Like, you just pick out your deer. Yeah. Which one do you want? You know, that one's got 8 points. That one's got 10 points. I'd take the 10 point.
I'd take the 30 point.
I'd take the 30 pointer if I had a if I had a choice. A 30 pointer never did show up. Okay. Oofta. But yeah, so that was my first deer experience, was picking out the deer and having the guide say, you know, all right, just put your shotgun up on the rear view mirror.
Shotgun.
The rear view.
And go ahead and fire away. Well, I had a rifle.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how about if I just kind of try to walk up on it? Like, okay, go ahead. So I walked up on it, took my 8-pointer, and walked away with a lot of great meat and a really neat experience. You know, and it is. It's a Texas experience. You know, you shoot a deer at King Ranch, and this is what's normal in these circumstances with these, you know, folks that you're out there with. And it was something that I walked away with still pride, you know, but at the same time, I still want to go out and, you know, I like to stalk. I'd rather get out there and do the thing. You had mentioned that you do bow hunting. Mm-hmm. There's a whole other feeling, you know, when you're getting that much closer to the deer and having that experience, and still need to live that.
So it's different from being in like the, you know, the bow blind and everything too. But you know, there are some experiences that I still really want to live out, like going up to Colorado or Montana or something like that, and legit stalking like an elk or something like that. Like that looks like a freaking blast.
Yeah, I mean that's hunting. It's really kind of weird. This actually is a good like drop into a pretty good conversation that goes on, I think, at a national level. I would love to get your guys' take on this. I've got my own take on this. You know, I got a lot of friends who hunt out west, and it's a lot of spot and stalk. There's no feeders, obviously. I mean, we got a Texan and a Texas Soden. You're a Texan now. I mean, you're a Texas distiller.
Tex-Utah,
you're a Texas distiller, buddy. Like you make moonshine in Texas, so like you're Texan all the way. But you know, and we guys have both talked about like country shooting a deer off the back porch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We talked about shooting a deer over a feeder, and that is a thing we do here in Texas. We shoot deer over feeders. And so I talked to my friends up north a lot about that, and they're like, well, that's not hunting. And I kind of look at them and I say, well, you're thinking about this through a rifle scope lens only, and you're thinking about this as like hunting as being this thing where you got to work real hard, you got to stalk this deer. And in Texas, I think one of the things people don't understand is we have a lot of fucking deer.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of deer here.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, and when you look at places like the hill country, like if we actually want to manage the populations to get to a healthy level of deer, you can't spot and stalk these deer all over the place.
Deer hunting's not easy either. It really isn't. Like it's easy in the sense of like when you think about how everything is placed, it sounds like everything is placed in the right.
But who places it?
Yeah, exactly.
You still have to work. You still have to do the thing.
Yeah, and it seems like everything's placed right. But I mean, deer are much more, you know, they're smarter than we give them credit for. And they're not as habitual as you would like to think because, you know, we've tracked deer on game cameras and they just, you never know when they're going to show up, when they're going to be there. And so, yeah, it's obviously it's not as hard as doing something like hunting out west in the mountains or whatever like that. That's obviously a whole nother level. And that's something that I'd like to get to. I think that's something that everybody should experience, but it's not as easy or as just like clean cake cut as putting corn out there, always expecting deer to show up. They're always going to be there. You pop one, you know, there's strategy involved in that too, and seeing where the trails are and everything like that. Yeah. I've heard a lot of this too, so I'm just ranting at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, here's the thing is like, there is a lot that goes into what I call what we do here on the ranch is it's land management.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily hunting. there is a certain level of skill that goes into it, no doubt, and there's a certain level of challenge, but it's nowhere as challenging as my friends who live out in Los Angeles, who go and chase elk out there or go and chase deer out there. But the thing about it is the goal, or like the objective on this ranch, is to lower the amount of hooves and mouths to create a better carrying capacity to animal ratio. And because in the Texas Hill Country, we have 4.2 million people and about 3.7 million deer. Mm-hmm. So there's like almost a deer for everybody. Like Oprah Winfrey could come down here and be like, you got a deer, you get a deer, and you get a deer. Everybody gets a deer around here. And if we didn't hunt them with feeders, we could never even begin to keep up with a population that's already out of control. Yeah. In fact, TPWD has been talking about expanding the doe season and like really like pushing it out further, just because we are incredibly overpopulated. And what happens is as the deer browse and overbrowse the land, it causes an imbalance. And as the deer so let's think about this: 3.6 million deer. Where do they live? We built cities, we built roads, we built all these things. So all these deer are getting pushed into smaller and smaller areas. And the more we build, the smaller the areas they get pushed into. And that means that they're hammering these pristine wild areas. And so that's one of the things that I tell my friends up north. I'm like, look, you're not thinking about what we're dealing with here. You're treating our situation as if it's like your situation, where finding a deer in your part of the world is really tough. Finding the deer in our part of the world is stepping off your back porch. Like there they are. Yeah. So, deer hunting is not necessarily at the end of the day about, and this is where I think people get caught up in a lot of things in life even. They get caught up in this whole idea that the deer hunting is about the challenge for them. Like it becomes this so focused on me. What did I prove about who I am? Mm-hmm. When actually deer hunting is about providing food and it's about managing the land. Yeah. And when you look at it through that lens, then the acceptable practices of how to do it broadens a little bit. Yeah. So.
Yeah. All I know is, my wife's happy as hell when I come home and
that's all that matters.
Got some deer meat that we processed back home in Inez, and we're like, hey, here we go. We've got.
And she likes the taste of venison.
Yeah, we got hamburger meat for a whole 6 months or whatever.
Well, and you had a kind of a special deer experience this year, right?
Yeah. You guys this year. So just where I'm at this year, we got married last year, and we are expecting a baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Buddy. Appreciate it. Yeah. And my wife did not grow up in a hunting family very much. She grew up in New Braunfels, which is a smaller city, She met me being on the road playing music and stuff like that from old Inez, Texas. And I'm like, hey, I love hunting. I love, this is what I grew up doing. So I want to keep doing this stuff. And of course she's extremely supportive. It's like, she doesn't understand it. She's like, yeah, go ahead. And when it comes to going back home and getting a deer or something like that, or dove hunting or whatever, she really loves it when I come home with a freezer full of meat and I go, here we go. We don't have to buy hamburger meat from H-E-B or anything like that. We got it.
Nice.
And this year was a little extra special because traditionally what we would do, like my dad and I, if I get a deer or if one of my brothers did or if he did, they would ground the meat and do like hamburger meat with that meat and then take some of the meat to get processed into sausage. But this year my dad kind of missed me a little extra, I guess, just missed hunting with his sons, whatever. So when I came home, it was much more of like a deal where he was like, listen, we're going to process everything, including the sausage, Let's get casings. Let's get the funnels that we need for the grinder and everything like that. After I got that deer, we made out with a ton of sausage, a ton of ground meat. It was just a special, different experience to literally do everything from farm to table, which is a expression that's used a lot, but it's really true when you see it happen. You get the deer, you process it. I processed it myself, cut it, gutted it and everything like that, got the meat off of it and grinded it, put it into sausage, put it into ground meat. So that was kind of a first for us this year, and it was a really cool experience.
It was a super cool experience.
Yeah.
Did your wife notice about it?
Yeah.
What'd she have to say?
Yeah, she's just like, this is cool, Like I kind of strolled in with a mountain man vibe, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it tasted better too. It just comes down to like everything tastes better when you cook it, or not just cook it, but when you actually process it yourself. Like, it may not be professional or done by somebody who's been doing it for 50 years, but it somehow tastes better because you did it. You and your dad and somebody in your family did it together.
Yeah, my dad has like a secret ingredient when it comes to the seasoning. It's probably just like salt and like it's probably like 3 seasonings, but still it just makes it that much more special when you have the tub full of meat that you just cut off the deer, you know, in this experience of a lifetime of just going back out in the quiet of the country in the woods and getting that deer. And, you know, he throws this seasoning in there and everything just...
It's called love.
Yeah, it's love. The seasoning, the special ingredient is love.
The special ingredient, no matter what it is, and it could be just, one thing. Yeah. That's all it is it's love. And it does. It makes everything taste better.
And it tastes great.
Yeah. It's connectivity. Yeah. Like you killed the animal.
Yeah.
You gutted the animal. You cleaned the animal. You butchered the animal. You turn the animal into a new product, whether it's hamburger meat or sausage, and then you cook the animal.
Yeah.
And there's a deep level of connectivity that draws you back to finding your place, I think, in the predator web.
Yeah.
That I think that it's something to be proud of, reclaiming that connection.
Yeah.
One that, quite honestly, I think society, we've tried to push that away. Mm-hmm. We've tried to push ourselves as far away from the fact that we're predators as possible. And so I think it's pretty amazing when you get to reclaim that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a circle of life like no other, really. I mean, it's cliche, but it's true, you know?
Well, it's something that only people who hunt really understand.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is you have to do it. You don't have to do it every year. You don't have to do it all the time. But you have to do it once to understand that. And I think it forever changes your perspective of food once you've done that once, you know. So I didn't grow up with anybody, you know, teaching me how to hunt or taking me how to hunt. So it was until my 30s when I understood that sense of connectivity. And it changed everything. I'm just happy every day I get to do it.
Yeah.
But you hunt, you're a family man, grew up in the country, but your primary thing that you do is
music. Sling a guitar.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that found its way also. I guess everybody in my family had kind of a great taste in music. That same grandpa that taught me how to hunt also had vinyl records of Willie Nelson, Ray Price, Conway Twitty, Merle Haggard, classics. And I still, even on Spotify on my phone, I'll dive into those same albums that I fell in love with country music on, you know? So it's literally what it was. It was like hunting during the day. He had horses. We'd ride horses and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, he'd put on a record. And a lot of times it was Willie Nelson, Redheaded Stranger, or Last of the Breed, which is the album that Willie, Ray Price, and Merle Haggard did together. Yeah, it's such a great record. And, you know, I just remember those memories so purely and falling in love with that kind of music. The music that really nobody else my age, being, you know, 12 years old, whatever, really loved. And I just really did. By the time I was about 14, I learned how to play guitar. I wanted to play guitar because I loved music and I wanted to kind of explore that calling that I had and everything. Yeah, so as far as the first few records that really hooked me, those were them, you know? And then at the same time, my grandpa and grandpa were divorced. My grandma had very best of the Eagles, very best of of Elvis and stuff like that. So I just dove into those too. You know, she had like Ray Charles, some soul records, you know, so some blues records. A little bit of that was kind of thrown in there too. She had some Willie as well. My dad loved everything. You know, being in the back of my dad's truck really kind of introduced me to the whole Texas music scene, because Live Number 2 by Robert Earl Keen must have been stuck in his CD player because that's what was always going. So I heard, you know, Road Goes On Forever and all those tunes over and over again, you know, being in the back of my dad's truck. And yeah, so music always played a big part of my life, and it was a true soundtrack of my upbringing. because obviously I clinged onto it a little more than maybe anybody else in the family that loved music did, because I was the first in my family to explore music and to really want to go into it. So yeah, that was a really cool experience.
When did you know you were going to be a musician, professional musician? When did you know that's what you were
As soon as I started writing songs, which was around 15, I was like, oh, this is it, man. I want to do this 100%. Like, I want to dive in. I wasn't super great at school, so it was kind of like, all my heroes are on tape, so to say, or on my iPod or on CDs. And
Was it tape back then?
I was gonna say
no. I didn't
tape.
listen to tape. More of a figure of speech to make myself sound older, but no.
They originally recorded on tape.
Yeah, it was on the first iPod and CDs. And so once I started writing and I figured I had kind of a decent voice when I was learning to play guitar, I kind of told myself this was it, this is what I wanted to do. And the more, if it hadn't been for my parents, it probably wouldn't have been a thing, because they were super supportive from the get-go. My dad literally booked me shows when I was about 16, 17 in bars. I would have to go in with my dad into these bars in Victoria or Goliad or, surrounding towns and play shows, just me and my guitar. I wouldn't trade that for the world, because that's how I kind of
just having that support to the fact that my father will bring me into a 21 plus. I mean, he believes in me that much.
Yeah.
Like that as a, as an underage person, like that's going to mean a lot.
Yeah. As somebody who has very low self-confidence and
as we all were at that age.
Yeah. And just no really clear-cut goals in anything outside this one thing. That's what I had. And that built me up to eventually I moved to San Marcos because I wanted to live in Austin, but Austin was too expensive for like an 18-year-old who was paying his own way. So moved to San Marcos.
Where was your first show? Do you remember?
My first show, Moonshine Drinkery in Victoria, Texas, the little bar, still there, downtown Victoria. That was my first show. And I had like a residency there.
What'd you play? Do you remember what
I played like a few originals and mostly covers, everything from Willie to Merle, those guys, to, of course, like George Strait, Alan Jackson. I'd dive into like some John Mayer, some Jack Johnson, I'd throw in some singer-songwriter stuff,
How long was your show there?
Couple hours, probably. Yeah.
It's long.
Yeah.
It's a long set.
I probably talk a little bit in between the songs,
What'd you talk about? So here you are, you're like,
life experiences?
15?
No idea. Yeah. I mean, like, I have a paper due, something like that.
Yeah.
But
so 12, 14, 15, 18, San Marcos.
18 is when I moved to San Marcos. I moved with a buddy of mine named Carson Pope, who is still my guitar player. I would play guitar with him in like our garages back home, and he was going to Texas State. I was taking classes at Texas State. I didn't finish. He did. We decided to just, form a band. So we got a drummer from an acoustic show that we played. We got a bass player from Craigslist. We formed a band, and we were on fire, man. I had 10 songs. That was enough, 10 good enough songs that I thought were good enough to put on an album. I reached out to my friend now, Pat Mansky, who owns a recording studio just down the road here between Dripping Springs and Wimberley. And
not associated with the Mansky role, is he?
No, probably not. It's the studio is called the Zone Studios. Okay. And it's where like Ray Wiley Hubbard and Robert L. Keane record and guys like that. So it's pretty legit. I felt like a badass walking in.
I don't
there.
know who any of those guys are.
Yeah, right.
Ray Willie Hubbard.
Ray Willie Hubbard.
Mm-hmm.
So, needless to say, I felt pretty cool walking in there.
Hell yeah.
And recording my first album, and it's still out everywhere. We put it out, and eventually after we put it out, we had booking agents and managers reaching out and everything like that. And
is that when you were 18?
I was about to turn. I was turning 20 at the time.
So you've been in San Marcos. Were you still in San Marcos? A couple of years?
I was in San Marcos for a couple of years. Just screwing off, writing songs, taking classes, forming this band. Just trying to chase this dream. And then from 20 to now, it was just pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Did you meet your wife in San Marcos?
I met her So a friend of mine who is a musician had a guitar player who was dating her best friend. And it was like, it's a very long, like drawn out thing, but she was going to some of the shows that I was playing with this friend artist. And that's how I met her. So, you know,
that's
I guess
definitely
through music.
shifting gear. Before we shift gears into that,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you if you could pick a song from previous time period and play us a song from that San Marcos, that band with 18.
From my first album?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right on.
Let's do it.
And I'm going to pour myself a little bit of Davin's straight malt whiskey here.
You may as well pour a few.
I don't know where I have to be on the mic, but I'm going to back it up a little bit for vocals.
Yes. We'll confer with the guys that are off the camera.
With production here.
Yeah, with the Ben Lou, Matthew Hartman. See
The men behind the scenes.
The true rock stars.
This is right.
So I'm going to play a song I wrote in a buddy of mine's garage who is also a hunter. His name is Garrett Sparkman. I wrote it in his garage in Inez, Texas when I was home from one of our San Marcos stays, who I also lived with my guitar player. After I wrote it, he was like, dude, you got to record that. He knew I was recording an album. He was like, bro, this is a song you got to do. And it's about being on the road and stuff, and I had barely been I'd been playing like acoustic shows around either San Marcos or Victoria, that's it. But
it was a small road.
Yeah.
it's a small
it was
road.
a road for you.
It was still the road.
It was the road. It was
White
everything
lines,
that I
yellow
was-
lines.
Yeah, exactly. We good? Cool. I was told that this here road is where the whiskey flows and the good times are on. I was known to know where my seeds are sown, and I never let the devil steal my soul. But lately I've been running high and running low. Seems just like there's nowhere else to go. Till I'm a gray man like a greyhound bus, I'll be bound for somewhere else I can't go. I may be hellbound on this highway, but baby, my way ain't the way that this world goes. It either praises me or it stands opposed. Ain't this the way that life told me to go? So I'll let this road take its heavy toll. I was told that this hero could take the soul of a decent man and turn him ice cold. The white lines get you high, and the cries from a crowd can keep a man from feeling alone. But temptation lurks in every town, so boy, you best just keep that hammer down. Don't think you're invincible. At any point this life could turn around. I may be hellbound on this highway, but baby, my way ain't the way that this world goes. It either praises me or it stands opposed. Ain't this the way that life told me to go? I'll let this road take its heavy toll. Yeah. I just wanna say thank you, Lord. Thank you for showing me where I belong. I know you're trying to test me, Lord, but I won't let the devil tag along. No matter how hard it gets to carry on. I may be hellbound on this highway, but baby, my way ain't the way that this world goes. It either praises me or it stands opposed. Ain't this the way that life told me to go? So I'll let this road take its a heavy toll. There we go.
You know what? Everybody in this room ought to clap. Right?
Good God.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Hopefully the mic caught all that.
That's amazing. I mean, I think we should just quit now. No,
Yeah,
this is a podcast.
We need to take a break.
You know, I think that you may have
Thanks, you guys.
Yes.
like consumed the soul of a much older human being.
That's what I was going to say. Was
When did you write that? How old were you?
It was like 20.
Yeah, you consumed the soul of an older human being.
at what point and how much did you have to sign when you signed your soul away? You know, what was the deal
What was
with
the deal?
Fausti
No, man, I got a lot of people asking me like, what the hell are you writing about, man? Like, what's going on? You know, you're so young. And it's just like, I loved music so much. It's like, whether I lived those experiences or not, it's like, it's the only way that I can really express how I feel. You know, there's no other way to do it but than doing what I know how to do, you know, and it didn't have to be that deep. It's just like, I think this is cool. You know, that's how I still write today. Like, I'll write about stuff that I have not gone through, or like just things that are way out my comfort zone. Even like, this sounds cool. That's my number one thing with music. Like, if it's cool, if it's not hokey, if it's not, even if it's not what the mainstream country radio is playing, you know, I just want to do what sounds cool. What would have sounded cool to me when I was that kid learning how to play guitar and diving into things that I thought were cool, because it was all over the spectrum. It was as I explained earlier, it was country, it was soul, it was blues, it was everything.
and you're gonna experience those things eventually down the line.
Yeah,
You've experienced
I've lived
them
a lot of it after I've wrote it. Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
And that's the thing. It's like at 20, like you're writing like a 40-year-old.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, you know that these things are coming. It's almost as if you're you're seeing the future before it actually happens, and it's all right there.
You're
Like,
deep thinking.
Yeah.
I
You're
understood
deep
how to
thinking
say
about life,
things, in music form, you know.
It's pretty amazing. I mean,
Thanks,
it's
man.
very amazing. All I got is a shotgun and some bird dogs.
Hey, this
That's
is
what I'm
my
working
this is
with.
my only talent.
It's
man,
nowhere
so.
near as poetic as that. So, your next phase from here. Let's kind of let's go. Like, where did your musical journey go? We talked a little about meeting your wife. So is that kind of a next phase from here? Like,
Yeah, man. I mean, I got a baby boy due here pretty soon.
now we're jumping way far. Now we're like,
Yeah.
family man now.
Now we're
Big
here,
time.
man. You know, I've always wanted to be a father. That's kind of been one of my main goals in life, even before music. You know, it's just like there was something there's even something poetic about that. You know, and y'all know. I mean, it's just like there's something there that really cements you into being in just an adult man. You know, and
A human.
yeah, just a human
Completes
being,
you as
man.
a human. Like,
Yeah.
having more humans sort of like completes like the path. And I'm going to give you a piece of advice. I give all my kids this.
Please do, because I'm taking all of it.
I have 5 children.
Yeah,
And
I'm
when I
gonna
tell
definitely take your advice then.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I tell everybody, is people tell you find the thing you're good at in life and keep doing it. If it's having kids, don't do that. Just
Stop at 5.
Stop at 3.
Yeah.
3 is good. 2 maybe.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
no,
know.
no. You're,
My wife's
stop
more
at
than-
5. That's your
Am I
yeah.
good? I
You're
don't know. I
5.
tell the last 2, I'm like, you know what?
Because you know the other
Just
2 are
kidding.
gonna hear this and be like,
Well,
3.
they know that that's just indulgence. I was just being indulgent.
Yeah, my wife's more in the 5 phase. I'm more in the 3 phase.
Yeah.
So you know,
We talked about that. She wants to have a big family. I'm going to tell you,
I'm fine with
pretty
whatever
awesome.
size family we have.
Yeah.
In the at the end of the day, and obviously, I want to take all those kids hunting. You know,
Yeah.
boys or girls.
Get them
I wanna
outside.
Yeah.
Get them outdoors. I want to give them a blend of the life I had mixed with the life she had. You know, it's just it's a very like nuanced thing when you really sit and kind of think about being a parent. And I will definitely be, you know, hitting up for advice and stuff. It's something special that I really can't wait for.
We were talking earlier about being on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, we're going to loop back around into hunting and the community of hunters. And, you know, you've traveled around now. You played, I mean, talk to us about so we just talked about this little short circuit. We also talked about you were playing in Montrose and those sort of areas. So since writing that song and that being on the road has changed significantly to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where have you gone? Who have you played with? What are some of the highlights for you?
And I started out my career having the pleasure to play for guys like Randy Rogers' band and Parker McCollum when he was coming up. And, you know, Wade Bowen was the first guy that introduced me to co-writing and writing with career songwriters in Nashville and taking trips up there. So it's a blessing to be able to name drop like that and have those guys kind of be in your corner and everything.
Mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To really help you out and everything, you know, and then everything from like guys like Josh Turner to Tracy Lawrence. I've been on the road with huge names, and it's really cool to be able to grasp fans from those audiences as the opening band and everything like that. Being on the road, as far as that goes, it can be tough, but it's so rewarding at the end of the day. And you meet all walks of life. I'm in my band. I'm in a band with people that think differently than me, that you know, grew up differently than me. Of course, when you broaden that horizon and you meet other, you know, people that become your friends that play in other bands or just they're involved in the music scene, it's pretty wild to see what a diverse culture music is and how just music in general and good music brings so many different types of people together. Whether you can tie that back to hunting too. Whether you're someone like me that grew up in a small town that hunted and did everything like to people who have never shot a gun before and don't really get that. You're friends with those people at the end of the day, and it's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it is. You were talking earlier about like being on the road and meeting up with people who also deer hunt or experience that, and how that provided a kind of level of connectivity. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a different level of familiarity with that artist or songwriter or just guy that plays in the band. You know, when it's somebody that did grow up like you, that hunt. They grew up hunting or hunts or, you know, at least knows what that respect is when it comes to, you know, holding a rifle or a shotgun or a bow. It's just so much more of a different wall that's been broken to be like, okay, you're like me. Not that a musician that did not grow up like that isn't like me. You know, the music is the bond, you know, but there's even more thorough wall that's been broken to where you're like, okay, this guy shares a similar story that I do, you know?
Well, and I want to ask you, could you even say that it pushes a little further than that? Because the act of hunting it's just a thing that we do in the outdoors. It's a conduit that connects us to nature. Yeah. It takes us a little bit more aside from the constructs of man, from the triple stacked highways that we build in our cities and you know, the slushy marts and the Walmarts and the malls and the whatever, all of those things. I feel like when you're a hunter, you put a premium of value on getting away from the things that man has made. Mm-hmm. And do you think that's kind of that's the connection? It's not just the hunting. It's like the idea that this is somebody who values nature on a different level.
It's the stillness. It's the quietness. It's the just being outdoors. And even when you're just tired of being on the road or whatever, you know, it takes you away from everything when you're out there and you're enjoying what nature brings and everything. Like, it's really something special. And I hope that more people just dive into that and realize how important that is, because it is, especially when you're in such a busy environment, you know, it brings a lot of peace to you. And when you do meet another songwriter, artist, band member, whatever, that does that, you kind of understand that. You're like, all right, this is a guy that knows how to unplug and how to take those experiences and even sometimes use them. Like, I'm not as good as writing when it comes to songwriting and everything, writing about that aspect, or even just more like I'd like to get better at writing about those experiences of hunting or whatever, not in like a hokey way, but just like a very like poetic way. And some songwriters, like I mentioned John Bauman earlier, like he's great at that, like the Texas landscapes and everything like that. And he's a guy that also, you know, is familiar with the outdoors and everything. Those guys know how to translate that feeling into their poetic abilities to write that into lyrics or something like that.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to write a feeling that is a visceral feeling at the time of when it's going on, right? Like it's hard to write a song about what it's bringing it down to the basics of walking behind a dog with a shotgun and you know, without just saying that, because you're trying to elaborate on it, right, and make it compelling without just saying I'm walking behind a dog with a shotgun, but this is how it makes me feel. I wrote
that song last week. I'm walking behind a dog.
And this is why Josh is not on Spotify.
Listen, buddy. So here's the thing: you're 25, man. You got so many evolutions of your writing ahead of you. You'll hit that point.
I'm excited. I want to be guys like Robert Earl, you know, or James McMurtry, or guys like that take those kind of aspects into their songwriting, you know. And I think that just takes craft, and that's what I hope to continue to work on.
Have you gone into the outdoors with any of the people that you've been on the road with? Have you
Not really. It's always been more of like family members or people I grew up with, but it'd be cool.
I think we should do it here.
Yeah,
I think we should explore that. You and another musician.
Don't we just start hitting everybody up and just bring them all over here?
I talked to Tanner.
Tanner Usray.
Yeah. Is it Usray? Usray.
Something like that.
Yeah, Usray. Yeah, I talked to him, and you guys should get together.
I know, we need to link up. The only couple times we've met, it's been like a mutual, like, oh, I'm a big fan of yours, and him being, oh, I'm a big fan of yours. So that's always really cool. I'm glad you linked up with him because he's a solid guy and his music is killer.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool moment, actually, when he was like, oh, I know Mason. And then I was there with your friend from high school.
Yeah, Sierra, who is...
Oh, you went to school with Sierra?
Yeah.
He was married to Mason Matija.
That's why I asked you, if you were in that area, if you knew, like, who were your friends at Duck Hunt?
Yeah,
like
so
Mason,
we went to high school together. Okay. Sierra and I did. His girlfriend, she's great. I didn't hear from her for a while, I feel like, because I was just on the road and everything. And then, you know, next thing I know, she's dating this guy down there in Rockport, you know, that's doing fishing guiding and duck hunting guiding and stuff like that. And I'm like, dang, hit me up, let me know when
we had asked you too. Have you been duck hunting yet?
Yeah,
or have you been duck hunting before? And you said no, and I was like, not yet. You know, like, it's all coming. It's
and then this past
fruition.
week, or what was it, 2 weeks ago, or whatever, I see Josh down there, I see Tanner down there, and I'm like, what the hell's going on, man?
So what was so funny is I'm standing next to Sierra and Mason, and Sierra knew that you knew Tanner, and she's talking to somebody standing next to me. She's like, yeah, my friend Mason Lively was like, hey, you know, you're there with Tanner. And then I'm like, wait a minute, you know Mason? And then then that's when I sent you that photo of Sierra. I was like,
right. It's a small world, man. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
Texas is a small country.
Such a small country.
It is a small country, isn't it? It's the greatest
country. Republic of Texas is such a small country.
The United States is lucky to have us next to them.
It's true.
We're here for you when you guys need bailing out.
Yeah.
Mason, man, this is just awesome getting to hang with you, talk with you.
It's been such a treat.
Yeah, it really is. And we got a little further to go here, but we switched our beverage midstream. We switched from the Rusty Nail to Real Spirits, Texas Hill Country's signature select straight malt whiskey, distilled by the one and only Davin Topol. Tell us a little bit about this spirit, man.
Yeah, so this is actually rare now. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to find this. So this is actually a combination of 3 different whiskeys that we make over at Real Ale Brewing Company, Real Spirits Distilling Company. First whiskey is Devil's Backbone, real heavy Scotch ale, which is made from 100% malted barley, and a whiskey that's finished off in a port barrel finished whiskey. So this is a combination of 3 different whiskeys that are pulled together in a combination that complement each other. And so that port barrel whiskey is just going to add a little bit of that sweet characteristic to it, but still keep it very complex with those other 2 whiskeys that were created for it. This was created for the Texas Trailblazers, the Texas Whiskey Trail. Again, it's just kind of one of those rare things that put together.
What inspired you?
Many years ago.
What inspired you for this?
What inspired me for this was, there's a lot of whiskeys out there that tout a port finish whiskey, right? And those whiskeys are typically one whiskey that is then finished in a port barrel and then blended together. Every barrel is blended together. My, inspiration for this was creating something that had those sweet characteristics and also had characteristics from other types of whiskey but creating just a balance.
It's not monodimensional.
It's not
it's
right.
Really layered.
Exactly. And the only way that you can achieve that is by taking several different components and putting them together in a ratio.
Yeah.
You can't just, whatever comes out of the barrel, right?
Did you just mix these bam, a little of this, a little of that?
Yeah. Yeah. A little, kind of, but yeah, I mean,
then you just
but then you taste it. You taste every iteration, and it's funny because we actually did a panel with the Texas Whiskey Trail. We brought them all together, and we had them all put these 3 components together. It was a great event that we put together where we had 5 different tables put together these same 3 different whiskeys in a ratio that they felt was right or that they felt was well balanced, and then we all voted on which one was winning, which one was going to take over the actual blend.
But these are all your whiskeys.
These are all my whiskeys, right?
Okay.
So all 3 of these whiskeys were given to 5 different tables, 5 different groups of people.
Were these all distillers?
No, these were all people from the Texas Whiskey Trail. This is something that you're going to be able to experience, an exclusive experience that you'll get through the Texas Whiskey Trail, which you can look up online, texaswhiskey.com. Join and you'll get to experience these, but this is one of those experiences. So we had about 25 people, so we separated them to 5 different tables. They took all 3 components, made their own blend of these 3 different whiskeys, and then we voted, blind tasting as to who was the best one, and lo and behold, it was the one that I had created.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Did it end where you thought it would?
Heck yeah.
I mean, it was.
Is this crowdsourced really? I don't know.
Yeah. It's not exactly crowdsourced. It was kind of more or less just to show people how hard it is to create balance, and it's the same thing with music. It's the same thing with art, painting, life. It really is. It looks easy. Until you do it on the spur, obviously I've had experience in creating spirits and blends and things like that. And so it's not just something that anybody can come in and just make, right? I've asked, how do you write music? It's through experience. It's through mentorship. It's through
inspiration.
Yeah, it's through inspiration. And
is there coffee in here, by the way?
There's no coffee in there.
I get this coffee now.
Yeah.
You get that too?
Yeah, you'll get coffee, and that's the thing is people like this port wine finished whiskey, and so they would end up heavy handing it in their blend. And the one that came very close was actually the one that was very little on the port finish whiskey, but what ended up winning it over was you can't get this whiskey anymore anyway, so I'll just tell you
Put it away.
This is it's 1% of the total blend was that port finished. It's that outlier that influences the overall. Right, and it's again true to life.
That is a statement. It's that outlier. It's that outlier that influences the overall.
And if there's too much, if there's too much of something that makes this is obviously a different spirit or a different taste or a different color. it's that outlier that you've never seen before, that you don't need much. You just need a touch of whatever it is, whether it be influence from, your outdoors experience, from your musical experience. But it's that one that's really loud that you just need a little bit of to create something that's, well balanced and beautiful. And so that's what the straight malt Texas Whiskey Trails straight malt whiskey is.
Sometimes I feel like that.
Yeah.
Person who's a little too much for the room.
Well, that's why we just need 1% of you.
Just 1%. But so let's Mason, that's a beautiful song that you shared with us.
Thanks, man.
Just it moved me a lot. I want to talk about, you're in the studio now?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we just started pre-production for a new album. We're going in to officially record in a couple weeks now. I'm more excited about this album than I have been for any other recording process, because we're doing it all here in Austin, and it's with a producer named Brian Douglas Phillips, who is incredible. He's produced records by like Rob Baird, just a bunch of other guys that just fall into this like very much like country / Americana scene that I really think that these songs belong in. And as soon as I started writing with this guy, Brian, and as soon as we wrote a couple songs, I was like, oh, this is the guy. He is one of those guys that is like a virtuoso. He can write, play, record, produce, everything. And yeah, I'm super excited to get in, and I have all the songs for it between him and a bunch of other guys I've written with. And yeah, I'm just super excited to have this album come to life.
What number album for you is this now?
3, technically. Yeah, it's like
outside of technically how many?
Well,
no, and tell us more about
I did 2 full albums, and then I did like 3 singles, and this next album is going to be like a full album again. So yeah, I'm done with trying to figure out how people digest music. That's honestly the biggest challenge for artists right now, is trying to figure out how people digest music and new music, because some people, it's really kind of a 50-50 split. Some people love the whole like putting out a single every 2 months or 3 months or whatever, and some people love the full album, digging into an 8 to 15 song album. I like albums, but at the same time, I say that with earnest, because I like albums by guys that I will be able to take time and sit down or drive around with a whole album, versus guys that will put out a single and be like, all right, I like this guy kind of, I'll listen to his single and sometimes I'll really like it. Sometimes and be like, I'll wait till he puts out something else that I feel like I like. So even myself as a consumer of music and as an artist, I can't even differentiate what the difference is between like what I like more out of an artist. A whole album, a bunch of songs to really dive into, versus singles. It's just where we're at right now. It's not the age of putting out just an album anymore. It's figuring out how to navigate the whole streaming thing, the whole TikTok thing, whatever populates a song or a collection of songs,
It's totally different now. Like when before when an album came out, you had an album, you got a vinyl record, and you listened to the whole thing all the way through, and you flipped it over and listened to the whole thing all the way through on the other side. And it's pretty interesting. I don't think about that a lot, but as you were saying that, I'm reflecting back to like the Beatles' Abbey Road.
Yeah.
Like maybe the White Album.
Which I have on vinyl, Abbey Road, yeah.
It's a cohesive, like it's hard to listen to just one song.
Yeah.
You have to listen to the whole thing.
You do.
Yeah.
It's like it's all one stitched together. Sgt. Pepper's.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all one stitched together experience. Pink Floyd, The Wall. Those.
And we talked about Sound and Fury, Sturgill.
Yeah.
You have to listen to the whole thing.
And those are the go-to like albums. And I have everything when it comes to vinyl. Like I have everything from Abbey Road to Metamodern Sounds by Sturgill. Sure. Like those are like the ones that I will go out and get on vinyl or whatever. But now, with Spotify and everything being the number one way to consume music, it's just a little confusing as to how artists are supposed to present their music, album versus singles versus EPs. So right now it's just kind of a free for all as far as what the artist wants to do with their music. If you have enough songs to put out an album, I say do that, or I say roll out, which has been successful for a lot of artists. Roll out single by single, maybe like 3 or 4 songs, and then put out the whole album. But I don't know, and nobody knows really. That's the truth.
People stitch together their own albums.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
Right.
It used to be like creating a mixtape was a really complicated thing.
Yeah,
like in my day, like making a mixtape, that was like
yeah.
record
And
and
I
stop
and I
and
talk to
push
people
button.
in Nashville who are legit, like in the business, quote unquote, of whether they work for a record company or whatever, and they don't even know.
Yeah.
They don't know what's gonna take off for a certain artist, because you listen to an artist like Zach Bryan, who I'm a fan of as well, who will put out multiple songs in a short amount of time versus an artist that'll put out very few songs in that same amount of time. And there's just no secret ingredient anymore. And it's kind of cool at the same time, because you just never know what's going to take off. But at the same time, as an artist, it's very difficult to navigate, and it's a little bit of a challenge. It's social media, it's word of mouth, it's a little bit of everything that plays into how you're presenting your music.
So this new album, what's inspiring you in this album? What's the driver?
Right now, a lot of it is just, I guess, as an artist, it's doing what I can to craft the best songs I can with my peers, because I love co-writing. I love writing with other songwriters, whether it's guys in Nashville or it's guys here in Texas. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm a fan of writers from both spaces in music. Like, I'll write with anyone. At the same time, it's trying to figure out what to do with that music and how you kind of roll it out, or how you select which songs are going to be on the album and everything like that.
What's your writing process look like? Your creative process?
I wish I was still as good. Honestly, I was better at writing by myself at 20 than I am now at 25. And it's a blessing and a curse, because now I really enjoy meeting up with writers who have either had solid like hits with other artists or just hits on their own. And I love writing with them. I love co-writing. I love diving into other songwriters' aspects of what they believe really crafts a song, and how I can attribute my melodies or my lyrics to, or just something as simple as my hook lines to that. So it's a little bit all over the place right now. I hope to kind of hone it in, but right now I just like going into the room with one other solid writer and coming up with something great. And I think that's kind of how it's been lately.
Do you think that's maybe because you're deeper in a community now?
Yeah. I mean, I've been super blessed to meet so many great songwriters and have so many other, whether it's artists or songwriters, use word of mouth to introduce me to other very talented songwriters and artists. And that just helps a lot, because then that pairs you up with other amazing writing processes in a room from that other person,
15-year-old Mason, 25-year-old Mason.
Yeah.
What would you look back and say to somebody who was in your shoes at that point in time?
Man, I'd tell that 15-year-old Mason that you're going to experience a lot of stuff that you had dreamed about. You really are. And don't take that for granted. But at the same time, you got to be patient, because, they call it a 10-year overnight success for a reason, because it takes a while to really hone your crowd and what it takes to really gain that level of not even satisfactory in what you're doing. Because I talk to a lot of people who are at that level that are even like, this isn't what I expected, So I don't really know what it is at this point. I think it's just being content. And that's what I've gotten a lot better at, is being like, hey, I'm using gratitude to really understand that I'm doing things that when I first started this whole expedition, like I would have loved to do. And I'm here, man. I'm enjoying being at Spoke Hollow Outfitters right now and talking to you guys about what I do. I mean, because something as simple as that, or even just as complex as that, is super important to me, and I enjoy it.
Mason, thanks for being on the BunkHaus podcast. Thanks for being our first person on the BunkHaus.
Thank you for having me, man.
You want to pick a song from any time period, any song, and just play us out?
Yeah, man. Let's do it. I'm going to tune up. I don't know how.
I used to know a guy by the name.
I'm getting tuned up.
I knew a guy named Wade. And he lives down the road from the ranch.
Yeah.
And Wade's like one of those special guys.
You picked the right
Houston.
term.
And he when I went down to talk to Wade's wife's name is Charlene. Wade and Charlene. And he told me the story one time. He was like, Josh, let me tell you something. Me and Charlene, we're out there in Lukenbach, Texas, and Charlene was getting tuned up. And I was like, man.
Different kind of tuned up, obviously. She wasn't about to play a song.
I mean, if you go too far, you get tuned down. You get tuned up and then tuned down.
Lukenbach, Texas, man. That's such a place, honestly.
It is a very special place. Very special place. Lukenbach, Texas.
I'm going to play another new one, if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do it. Pour myself some Desert Door Oak Aged.
Ooh.
Right, I'm riding it out on that.
Honestly.
This is my nighttime.
The ride or die.
The night capper. Night capper.
He says he's coming home late for the third time this week. Seems like these days he's always got some place to be. So you blow out your candles and you ramp up his plate. And you pour yourself a tall glass of Cabernet. Then you stare at the TV till you drift off to sleep. You say it's a lie, but it sure seems like lonesome to me. You say it's all that you know, and someday he'll change. And you never dream of throwing those years all away. You say I don't know him the way that you do, but I say that that's just another excuse for a man who just ain't the man that you need him to be. You say it's alive, but it sure seems like lonesome to me. Maybe you think that you know and a patch up what's left. Maybe you still wanna hold out and hope for the best. But if you want someone who knows what he's got, I'll give you my heart if you give me a shot. I know yours is broken, but it don't have to be. You say it's a love, but it sure seems like a lonesome to me. You say it's a lie, but it sure seems like lonesome to me.